Welcome to the Pewtercast. This is our Buck in the News show for September 14th. I am Brent Allen, your host, joined as always, a man who is currently drowning in Buccaneer flags. Ren Daxt, you doing okay over there, buddy?
Yeah. Wow, man. This thing took on a life of its own. So a quick backstory. If probably a lot of you have seen sort of what's going on Twitter, and I had this great idea, which, by the way, I'm blaming James Yarko. Last year, the Tampa Bay Lightning were making their playoff run, and the local radio station were giving out these car flags. I decided to go get one. So, before I went, I'm like, hey, if anybody wants a Lightning flag, I'm going out there. If you want one, I can pick one up for you. The only response I got was from James, and he lives in Illinois.
Pretty sure it's Ohio, but
what's that?
I think it's Ohio, isn't it?
No, he lives in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
I'm positive, because doesn't he? Yeah, because he's an Illini fan.
Okay.
Or does he live in Ohio? Maybe used to live in Illinois. Anyway, small detail.
Not important to the story. Let me derail it for you here, Red.
Yes, thank you. Quit taking over my job, Brent. So then I see the Buccaneers are doing this flag giveaway. Same type of deal, except instead of going to the radio station, you went to the RV parking lot. It's early, so I'm going to bed, and I sent out this tweet. And before I go to bed, I've got 45 people that have replied. And I've given them thumbs up, yeah, okay, I'll grab you one. And basically it was for out-of-towners, if you can't get there. Because, we have lots of Buck fans. We get lots of emails. So now I got all these replies, and I'm like, okay. I was thinking 10, 12, I was thinking. And maybe I could get them. So by the time I show up to one Buck today, right after 6. So I kind of finagle my car off the route they have and put it in a parking spot and just walk up and go, so who's in charge here? And shout out to Carrie. She was great. She goes, well, there's a couple of us, but, I can help you. What's going on? I explained the situation. I'm like, well, I'm kind of in trouble, Carrie, is really what's going on here. And so I showed her the tweet. And I'm like, well, this is what I got. I host a podcast. We're the Pewtercast. I told her, we're pretty popular. And this is what I did. And these are the responses I get. So I'm showing her on my phone. And as soon as she saw that I wasn't some guy trying to get a bunch of flags to resell them on eBay or whatever, she was all in. She's like, yeah, sure, of course. We're trying to get these in people's hands. This is what it's for. It's how many do you need? I'm like 50, probably 60. And she's like, okay, yeah. Where's your car?
Didn't even bat an eye, huh?
Didn't even bat it. She's like, yeah. She's like, let's go. And I'm like, okay. She's like, where's your car? I'm like, all this, I brought a bag. I'm like, I'll just bring the bag over. And I go to the car. When I turn around, she's carrying a whole case of them, unopened towards me.
Yeah.
So that was it. So by the time I get home, I'm up to close to I'm over 60 now, and it only holds 70, like I said.
Right.
And so I started looking again, and so I went back to Twitter, and people were still sort of adding on. And I got to this point where I got them all, but then there was a couple of people that, I was familiar with on Twitter or emails the show or I knew were big Bucs fans. And I'm like, hey, I'm looking to get more, I'll let you know. And as that was happening, more people were coming in. So now I have 31, I believe, more people that are looking for flags. But then Cheryl, my girl, came home, and one of her regulars is somebody who delivers to One Buck all the time. And they actually gave him a case of flags. So I am proud to report those extra 30, 31, 35 people that I have told through their DMs that when I get some more in, you're in, I will have your flag soon. And there we go. So, yeah, something that I started off that I thought was going to be, 20 people tops is now over 100. It's over 50 cities, over 28 states, and 3 different countries these flags are headed to.
That's cool. That's cool. And hey, listen, what I love about that is that's just so in the theme of what we talk about. We are a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan podcast, and we are here for the fans. We are fans ourselves. And, the fact that the Buccaneers were so cool, and I think you said her name was Carrie,
Carrie, yeah.
The fact that they were so cool with that whole thing of just like, yeah, sure, we're just trying to get these out into the hands of our fans, you know, and I don't know that they even had the thought of how do we get these into fans who aren't in town, who aren't local. Like, let's get these out. So the fact that we're able to help facilitate that a little bit, so that's super cool. You're saving one for me, which I can't wait to get.
Saved. Yeah. Yours is saved, has its name on it. You'll get it in like a month and a half.
Right. Because that's how long it takes for us to transfer stuff between the two of us.
That's right.
But so hey, listen, if you're one of those people who got lucky and hooked it up with Ren, he'll be sending that out to you, and I guess you'll figure out how to work out shipping, because that's going to be an expensive shipping project as well. Well, Ren, that is super cool, but I tell you, we are not here necessarily to just talk about flags, though. Very excited to get one myself, and for everybody out there to get one. We are here to talk about the Buccaneers and the headlines and everything that's been going on with the Buccaneers this week. We've had a couple of shows so far where we've really been focused on the game that happened this past week, and this is the show where we get to actually look at all the news and everything that has come out of one Buccaneer place, the transactions that have happened. We'll take a look at the injury report as we start to look towards this Eagles game this week. And then we're going to wrap up by giving our predictions of who the inactives are going to be, because that'll come right after the injuries. So, Ren, why don't we go ahead and jump right into this? Let's look at the transactions. We always start with the transactions at the top of the show. There were several over the course of this week.
There were.
A couple of them we've already referenced a little bit, but we'll talk about these. Devontae Harris got put on injured reserve, and then he got released with an injury settlement. Riley Bulla and Devontae Bond also getting released with an injury settlement.
Free agents.
They are free agents. Devontae Bond was out with a plantar fasciitis injury, quote unquote. So I don't know. We'll see. Of these guys, I feel it is far more likely that we're going to bring back Riley Bulla than we are anyone else.
I think we bring Bond back.
You think we bring Bond back? Maybe.
Well, if
Bulla will come back for the practice
roster.
Yeah. I mean, do we really need another linebacker at that spot? Like,
it's not okay. Then I use that argument against Riley Bulla. I mean,
but Riley Bulla would go to the practice squad versus Devontae Bond, who would most likely come back and be looking at the active roster type deal.
I'm just telling you, out of the two, who's most likely to come back?
You think Bond? So, yeah. And I mean, it's possible. Of the two though, who's most likely to get signed with another team though?
Bond.
Well, there you go. So, I think Bulla probably might be on the way back just for availability and his place, in that practice squad. So anyway, but whatever, they're no longer Buccaneers, at least as of this point. We did sign last week, just before the game, we signed Javian Elliott from the practice squad to the active roster. Mm-hmm. And it's only notable to me, and it's no real big surprises. We didn't release him this week to send him back down to the practice squad. So he is still on the active roster and will be heading into this week. No big surprise given the injuries that we've had, the major injuries we've really had at the cornerback position. We'll get into that. The big one, of course, we'll go ahead and say it. Vernon Hargraves placed on injured reserve. He is done for the season. I think it was a labrum tear or something of that nature. And up in the shoulder, man. Yeah. We'll talk about that for the headlines, because I think that is certainly potentially the biggest headline actually of the course of this week. We did sign a new tackle to the practice squad, Jaron Jones. It's fine. We re-signed Will Clark, and we signed him to the active roster.
My son is back on the team.
Yeah. So Ren sacrificed a goat and then did a jig after that whole thing happened. So
no, actually, I went and got 70 flags is what I did.
That's what he did. So Will Clark is back. We released it and signed a couple new practice squad guys. I'm not really going to worry about. And Adam Geddes was also released from the active roster as well. Has not been re-signed to the practice squad. I don't know if he's practice squad eligible, to tell you the truth. But
he's bordering on it, because he's been hanging around the organization for like 2 years now.
Right. We brought him in at the end of last year, actually, and he didn't dress at all. But he had a really good training camp. Like we liked We liked what we saw of him in camp.
He played well enough to make the team.
Right.
The problem is that, we have upgraded the offensive line, and as you do that, the good players slide down and eventually got bumped out. The only reason he made the original 53-man roster was because of the question marks of injuries along the offensive line. Like we really weren't sure even going into the Saints game if Dot was going to play.
Right.
Right.
Like
he was a big question mark about his knee. Donovan Smith as well. So that's why they kept 50 or 10 offensive linemen on the original 53-man, or the first 53-man, we like to say on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And, once everyone cleared out okay and they made the start, it was like, you're just the next guy to go.
Right. So now the big signing, though, and I'd say this is a big signing this week, is Marcus Williams, new cornerback to the squad. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, I know he's been around. I know is he a veteran? I don't know if he qualifies as veteran status, but he's been around for a couple of years anyway. What do you know about Marcus Williams? Where did he come from? He is kind of, I guess, the replacement to Vernon Hargreaves. We signed him on the back of that injury. What do we know about this guy?
Well, yeah, he's bounced around a lot. Like he's been in the league for probably 5 years, I want to say, around there. But he's only played in 3 years because his first couple years he was on the practice squad, and then we got him from someone else's practice squad, I believe. So he's just been this guy. But there was this 3-year stretch where he started some games and he has 10 interceptions in 3 years. He's 5'11", and he's pretty big for 5'11". He's like 182, which is pretty stout for a corner as far as weight wise, size wise. But that's all I kind of really know about him. He's serviceable. He has like 2-3 years NFL experience, and when he's been out there, he's been able to get his hands on some balls. So
yeah,
it's better than nothing, I guess. I mean,
right.
It is desperate at our cornerback spot now. So. And teams don't give up corners, and they don't grow on trees. So we'll see. But, when we pick up, we've seen it time and time again with Jason Licht picking up these guys, even like Geddes or Clark, even Will Clark, who they added late in the season and is now back on the team and, had like 2.5 sacks. We talk about Humphreys, where you talk about Cameron Braid, or we talk about Honcho. How am I blanking on his name?
Alan Cross.
Thank you, Alan Cross. These guys that
J.V. and
Wilson, these guys that didn't get drafted or come to the Bucs in some sort of different fashion and end up, becoming even small contributors or big contributors. So right now, I'm putting my faith in Jason Licht and his staff. That they know what he's talking about, and if he does get in there, that he'll be able to hold his own.
It'll certainly be interesting to see because, and we can go ahead and transition to talking about the headlines. Vernon Hargreaves is out on injured reserve. Brent Grimes is also still out with a groin injury that happened late in practice of the first week before the game. So our top two corners are gone, like they're out. And coming out of last week, Carlton Davis did not look great. Now he looked good in OTAs.
He looked like a rookie.
He did. He just looked like a rookie during the game this past week. And Mike Smith said in his press conference that when they rotated him out, that was planned even before the game. So it wasn't like they took him out for punishment reasons or whatever. And I don't really care why they took him out. He wasn't working. Drew Brees saw him early and said, "I'm going to throw to that guy, no matter which side of the field Carlton Davis popped up on. That's the side Drew Brees was thrown to, and that's the side that they were getting completions on." And they just threw to him all day long. So,
well, to be fair, it didn't matter what Drew Brees threw.
Yeah, but he was targeting whichever side Carlton Davis was on. Like, if you go back and watch, he would step up, look where he was, throw the ball to him.
Right, but I feel like, I just feel like your tone is like saying like it's Carlton Davis's fault the Saints put up 40 points.
No.
And I'm saying, to be fair, no matter where Drew Brees threw the ball, the receivers were open.
Right. It's just Carlton Davis, and I'm not saying it was Vernon. It was Carlton Davis's fault. I'm just saying that it was something that was recognized early, and he's the only one that while he was getting thrown to. I don't want to say only. I'm sure there were others.
Yeah, don't say
but
that.
It felt like he was the only one who was actually getting targeted. So all of that to say, Carlton Davis, it's a little, as of right now, at least from what we've seen out of a game, he's not somebody that I would list as a starting cornerback for really any NFL team. But as you said, he looked like a rookie. MJ Stewart, he came in. I thought he looked fine. He's a nickel guy. I think he bounced to the outside a couple of times. But certainly the most suspect part of our entire defense last week was that secondary unit right there. So man, Vernon going out. Your opinion? Let's get your opinion. Is this a big thing for the Buccaneers, or is it more like hey, Vernon really wasn't doing very good for us anyway, so
No, this is a big thing for the Buccaneers. There's a saying that's depth is great until you need it, and we're finding that out in the secondary for the Buccaneers right now. Of all the crap that Donovan Smith used to get from Bucs fans, and when we found out he might not starting from the Saints, the sky started to fall. Mm-hmm. And all the crap that Vernon's gotten, rightfully so. His rookie year was awful, statistically and film wise. And then we saw this slow progression, especially when he started getting moved into the slot later in the year before he got hurt. Okay, you're starting to see some things that like would garner that number 11 overall pick, and then he had a great training camp, and the coaches had nothing but accolades for him, where in previous training camps it was like he's learning, he needs to get better, he knows what he has to do, we believe in him. But this year it was like he's a leader, he's talking, he's having a good camp. So the whole narrative around him had changed, and we were seeing it in the Saints game. He forced a fumble. That's not necessarily a pass coverage thing, but like you talked about, the play where he got hurt, it was a PBU, a pass breakup, and I think we had 2 all game, and 1 was his. So now that he's down, we're sort of in that thing like, oh, now what do we do? The secondary was a question, was probably the biggest question mark on defense as far as how they're going to do. There's question marks on the defensive line, but everyone thought, well, I just really want to see it. We knew what we have in the linebacking core. We know what we have in the safeties. But as the cornerbacks, that was like the biggest question mark is this can go any way. Like they can be as bad as they used to be, or with these new rookies behind the veterans like Hargraves and Grimes, you could start to see some building blocks, and this could be, the start of something special back there. Mm-hmm. Well, now that's all gone. And now we're Carlton Davis and Ryan Smith, who is now the new whipping boy on the defensive side of the ball for the Buccaneers, and MJ Stewart. But I really think we're going to see quite a few looks, not just a play or two, but quite a few looks of Justin Evans being able to play or will play the slot because he's so athletic and has those coverage skills, and then bringing in another rookie to replace him at the safety position in Jordan Whitehead. But I guess,
which, by the way, he did that in training camp.
It's a devastating loss because he's gone for the year.
Yeah.
And
is gone.
We're not sure when Grimes is coming back. Like, Grimes hasn't practiced at all since his soft tissue injury the Friday before the Saints game. So here we go. Mike Smith is going to have to, scheme some things and try to protect these guys probably for a few games until they start to get their feet under them. So I wouldn't expect sort of a shutdown defensive performance from the Buccaneers, maybe even for the first half of the season.
That makes me cry, and I think that's fair all at the same time. And brace yourselves, because it's going to be a whole lot of Mike Smith hate here over the next bunch of weeks. And, I think we posited back in the off season, like how much of the defensive woes, particularly last year, was scheme and Mike Smith, and how much of it was him just not having the horses. And, we've got some people up on the defensive line. Defensive line's looking pretty good. The linebacking core doesn't seem to be as stout this year as it did for last year, or maybe just, Yeah, I don't know. The safety
off to a slow start.
Yeah, and then the safeties seem okay. Like they seem better than last year, but they don't seem stellar. Like it seems to be progressing.
Conti's Conti.
Right.
You don't really notice him until ball's going over his head, or he's filling in the run gap where Quan was supposed to be and making the tackle that would have been a touchdown, but no one talks about that. And Justin Evans is improving almost game by game.
Sure. I mean, Justin Evans is certainly the highlight of that backfield right now.
Yeah.
So, and the cornerback room is, I mean, think about it this way. The person with the most in-game experience right now on the team as far as the cornerbacks go is Ryan Smith.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, he's the whipping boy. He's our new whipping boy this year.
He's the vet.
He is. I mean, and even this new guy they brought in, Marcus Williams, he doesn't have the
He's been in the league longer, but he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the in-game experience.
He can't coach. He can't sort of, be the leader.
Right.
Because he doesn't even know how to tie his shoes yet as far as, defensive
the Buccaneers go. Right. And so the fact that Ryan Smith is in there, I mean, should that scare Buck fans? The fact that Ryan Smith is now our most veteran presence and our most experienced presence?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Smith came in drafted as a safety, never played a down as a safety his first year, but was a special teams demon. Last year, they moved him to cornerback, got in because of injuries, and looked like Vernon Hargraves did his first year.
Uh-huh.
If they threw his way, the guy usually caught the ball. He'd come up and make the tackle. And we were
Carlton Davis did in this last game.
Buck fans were hoping that Ryan Smith would take this step in training camp. You'd see improvement, and it didn't happen. And then it didn't happen in preseason games, and it didn't happen in Sunday's game. Even though he did get a fumble recovery, so kudos to you for that. But it just hasn't happened. So, but the bright side, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom here, but the bright side is we're probably, I'm not going through the whole schedule in my head right now, we probably face the best quarterback we're going to. Matt Ryan seems that he's sort of lost a little steam in his arm. Cam Newton will throw you the ball.
His arm's tired from all that money he's now having to carry around. Matt Ryan.
What's that?
I said Matt Ryan. It's his arm is tired from all that money he has to carry around after signing that contract this offseason.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Flacco, Todd Cole, Dalton. Dalton might be I shouldn't say the second best, but I think Dalton's going to have a good year this year. Sort of run through these teams. Dak Prescott, I think, has been overrated since he got into the league. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the bright spot is you run down, the roster of these rookies that quarterbacks are going to have to face. The tough ones out of the way, and we got to win.
All right, well, Ren, why don't we go ahead and take a look at some of the other headlines that have kind of come out. Really, a lot of this is less football and kind of more peripheral stuff, at least of the headlines that kind of caught my eye over the course of this week.
Sure.
Let's see here. Kind of looking to maybe some of the press conferences. Todd Monken talking about his play calling. Finally, Cutter admitted that Monken was the one who was calling plays. Took him a few press conferences to do. I think Dirk was just screwing with people on that one. I really did. I think it became a game for him, towards the end. And I think you even saw that with Fitzy. When Fitzy got in there, he was kind of keeping the game going a little bit too.
And Evans was doing the same thing in the locker room after the game. He was like, what?
Was he? What? Yeah. Yeah. So, I think they were just screwing with people, particularly the guys in the media room. But he said, according to Monken in his press conference, that his play call, his job calling the plays is kind of week to week. Like this isn't they have not said that this is a permanent change that they're going to do. It's just,
And I think everyone expected that.
Sure.
I mean,
sure. It's the coach's answer, right?
Yeah.
For that. I'll do whatever they want me to do.
We talked about it before the Saints game. When I was saying that, hey, I think Monken's actually going to call the plays for the Saints game. And why is because it's the best play for Dirk Cutter. One, the offense is rolling in the preseason, so it'd be kind of silly to take it away. I know regular season's different, but let's see what we got. and then he can just sort of hang back until the offense lays an egg for a game or maybe 2 in a row, and then he can take it back and, sort of be the savior. So if the offense does lay an egg for a game or two, it's not on him, it's on Monken. Mm-hmm. So he basically gets at least one free pass for a terrible offensive game. And that's, when you're fighting for your job this year, it was just the smartest thing to do. So I'm not shocked it's a week-to-week thing. What would be more shocking is that they said he's going to do it for the rest of the year, knowing that Cutter on numerous times saying that I don't want to give up the play calling because you always end up taking it back. Mm-hmm. So that would be more shocking if they're coming out and saying, yeah, Monken's got it no matter what happens. Right. Because eventually, Cutter wants it back, and eventually he probably is going to take it back.
Well, and Cutter talked today on the radio show, his radio show, about he talked about answering questions to the media, and he said in some cases I just don't want to answer questions because I don't want to give away our strategy. I don't necessarily want to come out and say this is who our returner is going to be, even though it might be obvious to everybody here. I don't want to come out and I don't want to put that out there. Does it really make that big of a difference? Probably not, but why give somebody an advantage? And the other side of that is there's a little bit of that, I think, in this. Why tell people who's going to be calling the plays? Why tell the enemy who's going to be calling? Just let them figure it out. They'll figure it out when they get there.
And if they don't, who cares?
Right. And is it really going to make that much of a difference? Probably not. But, no reason to.
Yeah, and then you start to add up these little quote-unquote competitive edges, and it's what separates, the good teams. You have everyone's roster is very talented. What separates the teams that win or lose are the mistakes, the penalties, the turnovers. That's what separates them. Mm-hmm. So now you have the playoff teams, the good teams. What separates those guys? It's these little competitive edges that stack up. A little known fact that Bill Belichick always has a left-footed punter. You know why? Because the spin's different when the receiver has to catch it.
Is that
that a big deal?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he always has a left-footed punter. Huh. Because the return guy never sees a left-footed punter, and it's a reverse spin on the ball.
Well, Ren, you have
chances are that he might fumble it. So you have probably go back and look at the stats, and maybe no one ever fumbles the ball against the New England punter, but that's why he does.
I think you have just unlocked 20 years of success for a dynasty that is the Patriots.
Yeah, that's it.
It's because of the left-footed punters. But that sounds so ridiculous when you say that. But as you said, it's those little things, right? It's those little things that add up. And I think that's part of why he's not going to just, and there's no reason for him to. There's absolutely, it's the exact same answer of why are we going to name who the starting quarterback is in week 4 when we're just now getting into week 2. Is it going to be James? It's going to be, I don't know. Jason Light's even going to get there. It's I'm not going to guarantee you that it's one or the other. I'm not going to let you know that right now. We'll talk about it when we get there. There's no
Jason
reason.
Light, who are you looking at next year's draft? Round 1.
Right. Exactly. So, so that was that. I do like Monken calling the plays. I like, I remind people it's, Dirk Cutter just didn't hand him the playbook and said, here, go for it and see what happens. They're together on this and Monken's not in a vacuum out there. So
yeah, Monken said that in his press conference. It was a good offensive game plan led by Coach Cutter. And then we talked about where it looked like they were sort of in this group chat.
Yeah.
Where Cutter, because he had his play card with him.
Sure.
So Cutter and Monken are talking back and forth. It's just the person who actually speaks to the quarterback is Monken.
Right. Exactly. And it may be Cutter more sitting there saying, hey, in this situation, this is what the stats tell us to do some sort of a pass play. And then Monken gets to call the pass play, Or,
what my new question is right now is that? How many times does Dirk Cutter actually call a play?
Oh, yeah. That
overrides him hey, Monk, I want this right here.
Yeah. And I'd be interested to know what that's like for other coaches who don't call plays. How often does the head coach override, a certain thing? And my mind actually immediately goes back to Pete Carroll in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago when they had Marshawn Lynch and they, instead of giving it to him to run it into the end zone and score and win the Super Bowl, they passed it and it got intercepted. And it was just bad play call. But Pete Carroll's like, I agreed with play call, thought it was fine. So I'm just curious what that's like specifically for our coach, but then how does that compare to the rest of the coaches? So, all right. Moving on off that, also talking about Coach Cutter's radio show tonight, which I don't think is going to be coming out on the podcast feed because they don't do that podcast feed anymore. So I'd like to.
It's already on the app.
The actual full thing, because I only got like the last half of it. I didn't hear the first half. Is the whole thing on the app?
They were doing it live on the app,
right?
And then last time I checked, it was still up there.
Still up there. Okay, cool. Maybe we'll get to go back and listen to it. But he had actually had a conversation about the whole captain thing, and I think the only thing one of the reasons that this matters is just because this was another one of those things where I think Dirk was just screwing with the media mostly. And I think this probably has almost zero impact on the game. But he was talking about the rotating captain thing and how they have not yet voted on who's going to be captains, and a big part of that is because he felt like there's a lot of people, especially new people in the team this year, particularly these free agents that they brought in, or even JPP who they traded for, who are leadership caliber guys. And to ask the guys to go vote on their team captains without seeing any of them in a game situation, he just didn't think was didn't give you the best, bit of information for the guys to be able to vote. Now, what he didn't say, and I think it's there, is they're also waiting for Jameis to get back.
There you go. Yeah,
they're waiting for Jameis to get back.
Spin.
Yeah. So
he's like, later on the year we'll vote on permanent captains.
Week 4
when Jameis comes back.
Right. Exactly. So
yeah. So they're just spinning it, and what they're doing, they're just sort of avoiding this firestorm. That's why he didn't want to talk about it. We're like, who are the captains? And if he went before week 1 of the Saints game, with these guys have nothing to talk about and have been chomping at the bit and looking for stories, as soon as the Saints game's played, the reporters are like, okay, they've got all this stuff to talk about. But you do it a couple days before, what's going to dominate Buccaneers headlines? Buccaneers aren't kicked captains because they're waiting for Jameis to come back, or they're waiting for Jameis to come back because you don't think he'll get it now, or they're waiting for Jameis to come back because if he gets it now, it'll be bad optics for the team. And they did this once again, the smart play. Right. They took all that crap out of play and said, none of your business, none of your business, none of your business. Oh, now you have other stuff that you really care about. This is how we're going to do it. And no one as of yet has picked up on, hey, like we are right now, like, hey, what they're really doing is waiting for James to come back. So it's okay for them it's okay for the team to pick Jameis as a permanent captain.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, I'm a bit of an altruistic guy. I tend to take things at face value. I believe Cutter when he says there are guys out there that they want to give a chance to be captains. I think that is equally
because
as true.
Jameis isn't here for 4 weeks.
Well, but there's I mean, think about it though. There's who are you going to put in as a captain? Last year, what was it? Quan and Gerald, right? Well, you've got JPP, and you and I both, with our own eyes, saw what JPP meant to this defense getting out there.
I don't know, man. That's why you vote.
Exactly, but I mean,
vote. So what's the difference between voting between now and week 5 or week 6? Don't tell me you get to see. I'm trying to be fair to the new guys. Whatever. They did it last year. They did it the year before that.
Yeah, they did a rotating thing last year.
What about the new guys? What about the new draft choices? What about the new free agencies then? It's a bunch. Don't try to spin it like, oh, I understand what you're trying to say. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because Sean Jensen deserves to be captain. And if he hasn't played a game yet, he wouldn't get a fair shake at captain. Who gives a crap? Who cares? They've done it for you. That's the way they always do it. The bottom line is they're waiting for Jameis to get back so they can make Jameis – well, so they can't not necessarily make Jameis, but when Jameis wins a captainship, that social media and the NFL Network and everyone doesn't blow up in this huge hubbub about the Bucs, electing captain as like, what's the optics of that, of a guy that was suspended for conduct unbecoming and it was allegedly touching an Uber driver. That's a whole – they're just taking all that out of the picture.
That's fair. And I think it's both. But the Jameis thing is definitely a big part of it. I just happen to think it's both. All right. So that's the rotating captain thing.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Sure.
If Jameis wasn't suspended, would they do this? The answer is no, so it's not both.
I don't know. They might not. I don't know. I really don't. But
Are you a Libra?
No.
Or Pisces? You're Pisces,
No.
aren't you?
No, I'm a Leo.
Are you?
I'm a Leo and I'm a monkey. Boom.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why I asked, because I don't believe in either of those two things.
Neither do I. But I actually like the monkey better than I do the Leo. All right. Speaking of rotating stuff, rotating right guard. Did we touch on that? I think we might have touched on this briefly on one of our shows earlier.
Oh,
this
yeah,
week.
we did.
Cutter.
We said we weren't going to talk about it, and then we talked about it.
So Cutter talked about it in one of his press conferences earlier this week. And his line was, he's like, it's not that we're mad at anybody. It's not that somebody hasn't won, because the specific question, I think it came from Greg Allman, was, hey, you're rotating them out. Is this a similar situation to last year where somebody hasn't stepped up and won the spot? And what Cutter said was, no, that's not necessarily the case. There are other reasons that I don't want to get into right now.
Competitive edge.
As to why. Right. And this is just the way we're doing it. And so,
what do you think those reasons are?
I don't know. And actually, I sent in a question. It's why I want to go back and listen to the radio show, because I sent in a question fairly early saying, hey, go into those reasons. And I want to know if they picked that question. And I kind of made it more general, so hopefully he'd answer it, not just Cutter me. But, I think one of those is just not giving away the strategy. I think that's probably a big reason, but I'd be interested to know why, maybe at least come to the end of the season. What was it? Like, what went into the decision-making factor here?
The only thing I can think of is that they like one or the other better at, like, we'll just say Benenach's better at run blocking and Evan Smith is better at pass blocking. And they have a certain package that they're going to roll out this drive. Like, hey, this is what we're going to try to do. Even though, the defense sort of dictates the play, what you can do, but, we want to throw the ball, or, you know what I'm saying? So, like,
right. The only problem,
we're running the 4-minute offense. So we're going to pass the ball up more. We're going to run, because we're trying to get down the field and score before halftime. So we're going to pass it a lot more. So Evan Smith gets in there. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. And if you think about it, that's when Evan Smith was in. He was at the end of the first half, and he was at the end of the game.
Exactly. And that was the only thing that I was going to say. The only problem I have with what you're saying, but I get where you're going with that, as the end of that is, because it wasn't like it was okay, you're in for 3 and now he's out for 2, and then you're in for 4 and then he's in for 3. It wasn't that. It was Caleb Benenach was in for this big chunk, and then it was Evan Smith for this big chunk at the end. And then it was back to Caleb Benenach for this big chunk, and then Evan Smith again, kind of ladder towards the end. So to be in a spot where you're in a part of the quarter or the half that you're going to be passing a lot, and that's what you want, that might be it. And I'd be interested to know, that'll be something worth watching, at least to me in my brain. Because rotating that
really
right guard
about it now
pisses me off, and maybe I just shouldn't be pissed off about it. Like, I'd like to know what that whole deal is. So there's that. Monken, you mentioned earlier, Mike Smith had mentioned that we might get a 3 safety look, dropping Evans down into the nickel.
I would definitely look for that this Sunday for sure. Especially if it's going bad for Stewart. I think they'd rather keep him up there. But as far as a rotation, and once again, when the Bucs want to do certain things, or they feel that the Eagles are trying to do certain things on offense, and they feel it's better to have a rookie safety than a rookie corner, look for Justin Evans to drop down to the corner.
And then and probably Jordan Whitehead being the guy to come in next to Conti. And then the only other thing is the new, and we talked about this with Carmen when she was on the show earlier this week, so we don't need to go too far into it, but the Bucs Beach thing is opening, the new fan experience.
I saw it.
Did you see it? Does it
look
cool?
I drove by today.
Does it look cool? Does it look interesting?
You couldn't really tell. It was kind of all blocked off.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't blocked off with like barricades, but they got a lot of foliage and stuff around it.
Okay.
So when you're in it, you feel like you're really in it, you know? It's not like hey, look, my feet are in sand and I'm in a chair, and but I'm 20 feet from Dale Mabry.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So it looked good.
Well, we'll make sure we jump over there and check that out this weekend while we were there for the game. But man, other than that, that's all the headlines that I had. Did you have anything else you wanted to kind of roll over with the Bucs for this week?
Nope. I think we touched on it all.
All right. Well, then that means we are moving right along to our injury report going in as we start to look here at this Eagles game. Shelton, we'll start with the Eagles. Shelton Gibson, who's a wide receiver for them. Never heard of this guy before in my life. He is questionable. He was full participation on Friday, so more than likely he's going to play. I don't know that matters to us. But out for the game, Carson Wentz is out. There was some speculation as to whether or not we might see him later in the game, but that is not going to be the case. But the big news, Alshon Jeffrey and Darren Sproles, big wide receiver and a big running back for them, are both also out for this game. Is that going to be a big thing for the Buccaneers? I mean, because I say that just because those are all offensive guys. The Eagles, their thing is really more about defense. The scarier part of their team is more about defense. So,
yeah, you're right. If you look offensively, we'll take the Jeffries, and he's been out. He was out. They've known he's going to be out, and obviously Carson Wentz, which we're catching a break there as well. Nick Foles, we talked a little bit, previous pods. He didn't have a great end of the regular season and just sort of caught fire. Well, did catch fire in the playoffs, and then had a terrible preseason. Didn't really have a great game one. He didn't have one pass over 20 yards against the Falcons, and most of them were less than 10. So, he just dinked and dunked and they went, which actually plays well for the Buccaneers because they're probably going to go in these quarters or shell defense and try to keep everything in front of them with all these rookies out on the field in the secondary and just come up and make the stop. And Nick Foles and the Eagles weren't good enough to continually to drive down the field and put a lot of points on the board.
But Ren, Nick Foles, he's been so effective against the Buccaneers over the course of his career. I mean, doesn't that bode well for the bode bad for the Buccaneers that Nick Foles, what is he? He's 2-0, I think, against. is he a Buccaneer killer? Is this a curse or something? We need to. Who's that other guy that always seems to have the Buccaneers number?
Case Keenum.
Yeah, Case Keenum. I don't know. I've seen people talking about this out on Twitter this week, and it seems utterly ridiculous to me that this is something to even bring up or talk about.
Well, it depends on who the defensive coordinator was. If both those games that Nick Foles won against us, Mike Smith was the defensive coordinator, then you can, you could put something into it. But if those are only two games he played against us and he won them both, I mean, it's nothing really to get excited. Okay, he just won two games against a team that's historically crappy. Okay. It's nothing. You're not going to put that on your resume. Nick Foles,
right.
Line 1. I beat the Buccaneers twice. It's not going to be on there.
Right.
So
that's why you should hire me as your next quarterback.
Yeah. So
Atlanta.
Obviously, the biggest injury on that thing is Carson Wentz. The Eagles have a good offensive line and defensive line. I think this is going to be a low scoring, punch him in the mouth game. If the Bucs can protect Fitzpatrick as they did against New Orleans, I think we'll win. If it doesn't happen, the game is going to key on Jay Ajayi. Once again, I know that the Bucs were good against the run. The Saints didn't run a lot, but up the middle, I'm still worried about the Bucs being gashed at just 5, 6, 7 yards at a time, almost at will, like last year. Not one game's not enough for me to sort of put it on the back burner.
Sure.
Right now, This one game's the anomaly, not the regular. So if Fitzpatrick has clean pocket, we win. If Fitzpatrick gets harassed, Jay has to be held. Has to be stuffed. Cannot have a good game running the ball. Can't run us up the gut. And if we get gashed up the gut, then Nick Foles won't have to push the ball down the field because they'll always be in front of the sticks. They'll be doing 2nd and 4s and 2nd and 3s instead of 2nd and 8s and 2nd and 12s.
Right.
And that's the key to the game for me.
I feel like this is going to be a different game to watch, substantively, than either the Eagles game from week 1 or the Buccaneers game from week 1. And what I mean by that is if you go back and watch their game, the Eagles game where they were facing Atlanta, unquestionably the best unit for both teams was the defense, and the weakest unit for both teams was the offense. Right. And so you had a strong defense going across a strong offense on, no matter who was on the field. Right. For the Buccaneers Saints game, it was the opposite. Our offense was unquestionably the stronger unit over the defense, and same thing for the Saints. Their defense was not as strong as their offense. So again, you had a strong unit going against a weak unit, no matter who was on the field or who had control of the ball. This particular week, though, is not that. The Buccaneers' strongest unit, at least in week 1, was the offense. Eagles' strongest unit was the defense, and then vice versa for the weaker unit. So what you wind up having is the strongest unit going up against a stronger unit and a weaker unit going up against a weaker unit. And I think a lot of this game is going to ride on whose weaker unit is weakest. If that makes sense. Because
it does make sense. I mean, I've sort of heard this explanation before, so I could follow on a lot easier, I'm assuming. Yeah. So listeners, if you got lost, just rewind it, push the 15-second back button twice, because if you do follow along, it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's going to hinge more on the weaker side of the ball for both teams.
Basically, you're saying who sucks less.
Yeah, because the stronger side of the ball,
the Eagles offense, whichever one sucks less, that team's going to win. Yeah,
and it should be a very good game to watch, by the way. If you take your I don't want to say take your fandom out of it, but if you just look for an entertaining football game, this is going to be a good game to watch, I think. I think it's going to be pretty close. It's probably going to be back and forth if I had to guess. There'll be times when it's absolutely maddening, and there'll be times when you're jumping up and down, spilling your popcorn. So,
do you know it's going to be 91 degrees?
That makes me very happy that we have an air-conditioned lounge right behind us.
Yeah.
So,
this is going to be the first time no smoking.
Yeah, you have to figure that out.
Yeah, what am I going to do?
Well, it's okay because we will all be smoking because it's so hot.
That's true.
All right. Going on to our injury report with that then as we look to this game. Brent Grimes, Vita Vea, they are both still out, although it sounds like Vita Vea is getting close. From the...
Well, that's what Cutter keeps saying.
That's what everybody keeps saying. He sounds like he's getting close. Apparently he's lost a lot of weight as well.
Did you see that he's dropped 21 pounds?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's lost a lot of weight. I have not seen a picture to compare, but I'd be interested to go look that up here after the show. I
just find it interesting that they drafted him knowing that was the plan with him. Because remember when he drafted, Sept was like, you can't play football in Florida at 350.
Yeah.
Remember, everyone's like, you know what, Warren? You're a great football player, but you're dumb. When you talk, you're an idiot.
Right.
So, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but obviously it was their plan bringing him in when they drafted him that they want him to lose weight so he can be, I don't know, a little quicker, a little faster or whatever. But I just wonder if how much of that, and here's what I worry about, and I don't know anything from anything about weight and strength and all that kind of stuff, but I'm wondering as he drops, those pounds, if any strength goes with it.
Mm-hmm. That's or you losing fat, you losing muscle. What exactly you're doing? So those guys are going to be out. Caleb Benenoch, Donovan Smith, also on the injury report. They were both limited earlier in the week, but they both had full participation on Friday. They will both, of course, go. Again, we mentioned earlier we want to be watching that Caleb Benenoch, Evan Smith rotation. Also want to watch Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith went out last week with a knee injury. I'm going to presume that he's still on. He had a knee injury going into last week. He played through it, and there were times in the game where you could see that knee was still definitely bothering him, but he still got out there. He played. I'll be interested to see if this is a lot like that. If this is going to be a lingering thing for him, or if this is on the backside of that injury, and he's just playing with it. So kudos to him for playing through it. But we'll do that. The big news on the injury report, Deshaun Jackson went out with a shoulder injury and a concussion and was full participation today. He is listed as questionable. Man's going to play. JPP, though, had a knee injury.
Full participation doesn't necessarily mean he's clear of concussion protocol.
That is true.
He's right on the brink.
Right. And the questionable status means likely to play, but it doesn't mean he definitely will. So I'm kind of giving it my Rick Stroud flippant. Yeah, he's going to play. Kind of
I would say too, but it doesn't matter how he feels. It's It's if he passes the test.
Right, exactly. So we'll see that. If I had to lay money on it, I'm going to say he plays. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. JPP, though, out with a knee injury. We had mentioned, we talked about this on one of our previous pods, that he had kind of gone down in mid-game. But I don't want to say he's back, but he said he's going to play through it. He wants to be, he wants to try to play through it. So we'll see what happens with him as he continues to get better. So that is your injury report. Well, Ren, that is going to bring up the final bit that we have here for the show tonight, and that is our predictive inactives for the game based on our injury report. We know that Brent Grimes and Vita Vea are out, so that is 2, but we're looking to get to 7. So who else do you got sitting out for this game?
I always forget we're going to do that, and I'm like looking through it like
I'm like trying to stretch out this introduction as I'm watching him scribble names and look through the roster. Well, I will go first while you're doing that then.
Okay.
My prediction for this is going to be...
We need 5, right?
We need 5 more guys. My prediction is going to be Alex Kapp and Michael Liedtke. Those are our 2 offensive linemen who will sit.
I got those as well.
Yeah. I'm also going to say Justin Watson is going to be out. He was out last week.
Well.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got six wide receivers. We don't need 6 wide receivers active on game day. So it's a matter of if he's going to beat out Freddie Martino, but Freddie Martino has great special teams value as well. So I think this is a case similar to the next guy that I'm going to say is out has to do with more special teams issues. And that's Ronald Jones. I think Ronald Jones is going to sit out again this week. So that gives me 6. I got one more guy, and the guy that I am saying is sitting out this week is going to be Will Clark. But I'm putting a little asterisk next to him because if it's not Will Clark, I think it's going to be, you ready for this? Noah Spence.
Oh, yeah. I had heard something interesting. I was listening to the What the Buck. He had Fisher on tonight.
Uh-huh.
And they're talking about they think that they're going to move him. Like they're trying to trade him.
Move Spence, you mean?
Yeah, because he's better for he's a 3-4 defensive end is what he is.
Gotcha.
And he just can't hope against the run. And now the Bucs have good enough players where just being a specialty edge rushing third down, like it's not worth it, And so since he does, have a lot of draft, or you could think you could get some good draft capital back for him that they're trying to move him. That's what they're saying. But he only played like 5 plays, and I just don't think, and I don't think they dislike him or they're mad at him or they're, don't like his play. It's just he doesn't have a spot for this defense.
That's exactly what.
Which would bring up a whole nother bunch of questions. And why the hell did you draft him?
Well, I mean, there becomes a spot where we've got 6 guys. We've got 6 guys who are defensive ends on the team right now on the active roster. We're not going to carry 6 into a game. So that to me is the next spot that we have to lose somebody. If you look down the list of who's all on that list, we've got Noah Spence is the least well performing. Now that said, Noah Spence is not the guy that they released. They released Will Clark. And you could for a variety of reasons, he's probably the easiest guy to get back if they need.
Yeah. If you release Noah Spence, like there'd be a bidding war for him.
Yeah.
Or he'd be in Cleveland.
Yeah,
because
or
I don't think he's a vested veteran yet because of his injuries.
Right. So, that's why I say it could be Will Clark. It could be Noah Spence. I'm leaning towards Will Clark, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's Noah Spence. I'm just putting that out there. So that's my 7: Grimes, Vea, Kappa, Liedtke, Jones, Watson, and Clark.
Okay, I have Kappa, Liedtke, Grimes, Vea, Watson, Clark as well, but right now I'm going through and I'm looking if the Bucs can get away with not having Marcus Williams active, the new corner we were talking about, and I don't think
I don't think they can
because you have Javian Elliott, Ryan Smith, and
MJ Stewart, and Carlton Davis,
and that's it, right?
Yeah. No, they have to have him.
Yeah, so
they have to have him.
I'm not forgetting somebody, right?
No, you're not.
Okay, yeah. So, So I'm with you, almost down the board. Kappa, Grimes, Liedtke, Vea, Watson, Clark, and Rojo.
All right. Well, folks, you heard it here first. We know that you guys will be staying tuned to those inactive reports to see if we were absolutely correct or not. But hey, listen, Ren, you and I are going to be at the game this week. If you guys are going to be there at the game, hit us up. We would love to come shake your hand, come meet you. We're going to be checking out. I know I'll be over at the What the Buck tailgate. I want to check that out. We'll definitely be checking out the Bucs beach, maybe a couple other things going on around the stadium, but mostly. Listen, we're going to be there to watch some football, and
you know what? I'm changing it because we did forget about MJ Stewart.
Okay,
so this is what I'm thinking.
Sure,
I'm thinking they sit Williams because he doesn't know enough yet. Rojo gets activated by default, and the fifth corner is Justin Evans if they need him.
Okay,
so Elliott, Ryan Smith, Davis, MJ Stewart, and Evans is that fifth corner if they need it due to injuries. And like I said, I think he's going to play there more than a handful of plays. I don't want to say a lot, but more than you would think. And so Rojo gets a start.
Well, at least he gets to be active.
Rojo gets to be active.
All right, Ren. Well, with that, why don't you tell the folks out there where they can get a hold of you?
Best way to find me is on Twitter, even though it has been blowing up for like the last 12 hours. One thing, if a lot of people who were DMing me about, I told them like, hey, I got your flag, and they were saying thank you and, talking about how much they love the pod and they appreciate, us doing this because for out of towners and things. And if I don't respond, don't take it personally. I try to give everyone a thumbs up. And mostly it's because I'm trying to keep everything in order in my sort of DM thing. Mm-hmm. So I know who I've talked to and happen to talk to. And if I start having conversations back and forth with everybody, then I'm afraid I'm gonna miss somebody's address and just miss somebody. So a few people I talked to, and then I realized like that's a really bad idea, or I'm never sort of get this done. So so those that have thanked me in the DM for getting them a flag or reserving them a flag, I guess I should say, you're very welcome. And I'm not sort of just leaving you hanging there. But the best way to find me is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football or mail somebody a flag.
And if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can find me at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias. You can find the show at The Pewtercast on Twitter or Facebook.com/ThePewtercast. Or if you're a little more long-winded than 280 characters, shoot us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Be on the lookout. We will be back Sunday night. Right now it's scheduled for 9 o'clock. Possibly might go 10 o'clock for the instant cast. We'll be talking about the Bucs at the Eagles. Phone lines will be open. We'll be broadcasting live on Mixlr and on YouTube.com with our brand new fancy software that we have for all of that. So you guys make sure you join us. And if you want to support the show, join the growing community of folks out there who are doing that, making a lot of this fun stuff possible. Find us on patreon.com/thepewtercast. Thank you to all of our patrons out there. You guys are doubly awesome. Well, guys, until next time, go Bucs, beat the Eagles, fly Buccaneers, fly, release the Kraken, wreak havoc, whatever you want. Until then, guys, raise the flags that Ren has sent you. Go Bucs.